we will be talking about the new pricing experience. Jason's in charge of slides today, so he'll be moving them on.
Okay, thank you. So, should we start?
Yep, let's get going.
Okay, fantastic. Well, welcome everyone. So let's make a start on the slide. And apologies if it. So there's a nice little picture of the both of us here to present, and I think Danusia is going to be fielding any questions that come through.
Absolutely. If anyone does have questions, please do pop them in the chat box or the question box, and when it's an appropriate time, I will ask Jason. Anything that requires a more of an in-depth answer, we'll get back to you at the end, but please do ask questions as we go along. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Danusia. Hopefully they're not tricky questions. So if they really are tricky, well, no doubt we'll get back to you, of course. So let's get back to this one. So what's on the agenda today? So this is all about the new sales price experience, and so we're going to talk to you about what that means. And so I'm going to sort of visually, hopefully, give you a comparison to what the existing one looks like and what the new framework looks like, and then how do you enable it? And also, go into software and maybe just show a few screens so you can start to visualize what it looks like. Okay. So what's changing, and really importantly, what's not changing? So it feels like there's lots of things changing in this list. So let's just go through them. So there's a different entry point to manage prices and discounts. So subtly it's a little bit different. So we'll go and cover that with some visuals. Different visibility and mindset. So I'm going to sort of harp on about mindset, because it is a slightly different mindset to how you create and maintain your prices, and hopefully for the better. But it's obviously that transition from existing to new takes a little bit of a while to get your head around. But there's some nice tasty carrots, if you like. There's some new features, like we can have prices against contacts, and we can have prices against GL accounts, which is a first in this new pricing experience. And then the last point there is extensibility, and then if you're sort of scratching your head, that's why I've got her. What does that mean? Well, Microsoft are doing this to allow other sort of frameworks to kick in potentially in the future. So if the existing framework is there, as it always has been. So it's moving over to this slightly different model, but then it allows people like us or other third parties to say, actually, would you like a completely separate model of how you do your prices and discounts? So a little example is like a bog off, which standard Business Central doesn't really cater for. But critically, what is not changing is the ability to still store your prices and discounts as you know them now. So that is not disappearing. So you still have all customer prices, customer price discounts, and so on, and campaign discounts and prices. So I think that's really an important message to relay. What's the advantages? So again, just focusing on the pluses. It's a better overview of prices and discounts on a single screen. So it's more of a traditional view of a price list. So if you're newish to Business Central, you might have come from different systems, then this is, maybe it's a bit more of a traditional way of how other systems work, or just just as a human way of thinking about a price list. And I've got a visual to maybe explain that. So that gives you a bit of enhanced visibility and management of prices and discounts, which is obviously very subjective, but that's the opinion that we do have. And then just to remember, it is the inclusion of contact and GL accounts, which is that's great. The ability to edit price lists directly and through Excel and publish them back to Business Central. So that's a feature that is now available in this new framework. You can still use the configuration packages as well if you're familiar with using those. So here's my little simple visual. So I like visuals, and to explain how maybe the existing framework, how it's transitioned to the next framework. So at the moment, if you haven't enabled the pricing feature, you've got a big pot of prices and you've got a big pot of sales line discounts. And today we only are concentrating on the sales line discounts. So discounts, just a sort of a quick summary. There are 3 discounts in Business Central. You got early payments discounts, you got invoice discounts, and you got sales line discounts. So we're only concentrating on the sales line discounts. And so there's a pot of those discounts, there's a pot of those prices. That's the existing framework. So there's no real framework to contain those. So as you can see, there's where we move over to the new pricing framework. You can now, merge those together into separate price lists, and that's why it is seen to be easier to manage, because those price lists can be configured how you want them to be. And some of that will sort of crystallize as we go through to the next slides. So I thought I'd just throw up what am I talking about in this how do I enable it? So I will show you again in software. I thought this is an important screenshot to show you. If you're not familiar in Business Central about an area called feature management, do search it up, and it will give you all the new features that either you have turned on or you haven't turned on yet, and when it's going to be automatically enabled. So the new sales price experience is a feature. It's not on purpose I've hidden it, but it's actually it does actually say it'll be in version 28, and so version 28 is April in 2026, so it's something that's going to be happening soon. This is the reason why we're sort of having these webinars now, to give you plenty of time to prepare yourself and use sandboxes and test it out. But when you enable, so when you go through to the enabled for and you click on yes please, I'd like to test it out, this is a per company feature as well. You'll be presented with a couple of screens, but this is one of the important ones. And you've got a choice here between use a default price list, which is really going back to that previous slide, like did you want to have one big price list, have them all together mixed into one, or did you want to maybe split them out into separate price lists based on how you configured your prices, such as if you've got all customers, if you've got customer price groups, if you've got campaigns, all that will be split. So that's something to consider and think about. And you get lots of warnings saying, once you've done this, you can't go back. So it is something to seriously consider, and that's why we really, highly recommend you do try this out in a sandbox. So, and I just thought I'd just give you what would happen if you that slider. So again, if I can go back to, this is the slider I'm talking about, and hopefully you can see my mouse going over it. Yeah, perfect. So if you leave it on, it's basically telling you it's going to convert it all into one price list. So it will create one price list, which is the default one, and it'll just like put everything into that one price list. So if you slide it the other way, then you should have a multiple. So it'll then break down. So this is the sales price lists, and I haven't shown you all the lines, but just to sort of give you the contrast, what would happen if you did actually have a split of different prices. And I think it's time for a bit of software now. So I'm going to throw that across. I don't know if there's any questions that come through yet, Danusha.
No, the first one that actually came in was asking when exactly this was happening, and you've already covered that. So yes, if anyone's got any other questions, please do put them in the chat. But that was the one that you'd actually covered it at pretty much the right time. Yep. Exact time.
Fantastic, good. Yeah, so that's April 2026. That's the wave time. So yeah, I mean, I would plan to that particular time, even though waves can have a little ripple over from April onwards, but sometimes Microsoft will say, boom, no, it's in this version. And yeah, that's yeah, do prepare. Okay, so what I've done here, I've just created the existing framework as we all know it now. And so therefore, you know, just a sort of a quick summary. I've just set up hopefully a filter on shares. And so I've set up so the normal prices that I would expect to see maybe against an item here. So this particular item, I have different prices that are part of a different price group. And similarly, you might have discounts as well. Hopefully there you go. So got some breakpoints here and you get some additional discounts. So hopefully this is what you're familiar with, anyone who's used prices, sales prices and sales line discounts. And then of course, you know, when you put through, I'm going to use a quote here. And I've just set up a couple of examples here. So I've got a retail customer, or I've got a trade customer here. So since we're concentrating on shares, I've got a Sir William Highback. And here I've just sort of testing through what would actually happen to the unit prices and any discounts that come through. And then also I've got another customer here, and that they're part of a trade grouping, and I've got the different prices and discounts coming through based on quantities and numbers. So as always, if you've got an existing framework, always refer back to that when you're gonna, I would then clone your company, and this is in a sandbox environment, and then enable that feature, because what you want to do is do a comparison, right? You want to compare to what the existing framework does to what the new framework will do. And I'm not going to go through the copying process because that would take too long for the webinar. But what I have done is already prepared a couple of companies where I did enable. So I'm going to go through the one where I did actually select to actually go and create multiple sales line sales prices. So I have different sales price lists, just to sort of see that. So here I've got a number of different prices here. So let's just go and have a look at them. Let's go and have a look at one now. So if I look at a customer price group of retail, let's open it up. And here you can see it's contained. So we've got a nice simple price list that is just for retail, and it's between a couple of between two dates here. There is a couple of, so this is the new pricing framework that you're seeing now. So again, if you think about that visual I showed you, where you've got one bucket of prices and one bucket of sales line discounts, now we've got this header and line combination. So we've got headers, we've got a header here, and we've got the lines down here. Now the headers is a nice way to control if these prices are active. So we have this status feature. So the status options are, if you're starting to create a new sales price list, you start off with draft, you start to build that up, and then when you're ready, you can then activate it. And the activate, what that does is it will double check if you've got any duplicate prices, because obviously now that you've got multiple price lists, there could be a risk that you might have duplicated a sales price list. So that will actually warn you, say, hey, you've got a duplicate here, and it'll do those checks behind the scenes.
Jason?
Yes.
So someone's asked whether this would work with a stock control process.
Well, I'd need to do a little more flesh on the bones with that one. So stock control process, yeah, or not, you'd have to sort of, whoever's asked the question, maybe they can expand a little bit more.
I'll track the question box, okay.
Yeah, because yeah, we are sort of talking about prices as such, or if they mean break quantities, I'm not sure.
More stock revaluations, if that makes sense.
Stock revaluations, no, this is all about prices. So this is about what you would, how you sell such, not about revaluing your stock. So that's an inventory costing question rather than a sort of a sales pricing question. So that's slightly different. So yeah, one of the features that you get your head around is if you're going to be editing your sales prices, which you can do directly. So if you were to change a price in here, so if I just change that to 345, what that would, so if you notice it goes to red, which is something not normal in the sort of existing framework. In the new framework, it will go red. And what does that mean? It means it really wants you to verify. So it hasn't actually gone and checked to say, is this a duplicate? So there is a verify lines here because it's an active price list. So I click on that and I'll go and check to make sure that is going to be compatible with all the other sales prices that are actually active at the moment. So when you do change from draft to active, if you've got a whole load in here, then it will engage that verify lines feature. So that's something new to sort of take into consideration. You also got these starting and ending dates. So you've got a few, I would call them like defaults on the header, which means if the way you construct your sales price list is based on a date range and or by currencies, then set these up here, and then you can start to build your prices down here, and it would be the assumption that all those prices that you're setting are between these two dates. Whereas before, you'd have to set those, the date, starting date and the end date, you're on each line effectively. So you don't need to do that, which is a plus because there's obviously less to type in. So you set it to the header and then all the lines will sort of take that default. You don't have to do it like that. So this is the one, this is the slider button here, allow updating default. So as soon as you click on that, it will then start to show some additional columns. It will show the starting date, the currency code, starting date, ending date, currency code down here, which means, okay, so you don't want to control it by the header, you want to do it by the lines. So that is one consideration to get used to. I think most people like to use dates, sort of have a starting and ending date. It seems to be like the most common model. So that's that explanation here, but there's a few other sort of columns that you would sort of recognize. You know, are we going to allow discounts with, you know, is this okay to have a mixture of a discount and so forth. But if you can merge in, so what I've just showed you there is a very sort of siloed and broken down one. If I just flip to the other company where it's all sort of merged into one to give you a flavor of the visibility side. Sales price lists. If I just go into this one. So here you can see, if I just make that just show a little bit less, so you can see a bit more detail. So here's a real, so one price list can be a whole mixture of obviously different price groups, all customers, and so on. And also your discounts. So again, remember those the two pots that we had before, the sales prices and the sales line discounts, all can now come into the one price list. And so there's no right or wrong way to do this. Really depends on your company, how you want to manage your prices. You may want to sort of keep it the way it used to be. I'd recommend you have a think about maybe segregate out. If you are using customer price groups, I'd have at least a sales price list per sales price group. I think that's a good start. And maybe have one for all customers as well. But here you can see at least how that would look if you do decide to merge in more than one sales price list or discount. So obviously one of the, I don't know if it's been asked yet, but I know that a common question we get asked is about, well, how do I I've got hundreds of prices. How do I, efficiently edit this list? How do I, create, new prices? Maybe if I'm planning prices for next year. So what are my options? Well, one option is to go and simply, let's go and create a new one here. And I'm going to say it's just call it a webinar price list. And I've got a couple of options up here. So I can either suggest lines. So what suggest lines is, it's going to, if you don't know if you can see the tooltip there, but it's going to go, if you've got sales prices maybe set up on your item card, that it's going to use those as defaults. If you've got to, or you can go and copy another price list, which is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to copy it from my default. And if you do have currencies, you can maybe have a currency exchange rate to work against. I've got pounds only, luckily, in this one. But you can then sort of say, well, I only want to take across to my new one just prices. I don't want to worry about discounts yet. Maybe deal with those discounts later. So I'm going to take over prices. I'm happy to take everything else across. And an adjustment factor means should we maybe increase our prices? Maybe it's time to do a 10% increase. So we have that feature. We've also got a rounding method. So this might be something new for people that haven't seen this before. It has the rounding method sort of concept is inside BC, has been there for a little while, but it does have a use here. I created one called pennies. So pennies means rather than have a 10% and it's going to give you a sort of a half a penny calculation, I've created a rounding method to make sure only sort of rounds to the penny, and that's just an example of that setup in case anyone wants to view that. So I click on OK, and I hope the demo gods are going to be kind to me. I hit F5 and then I get a refresh, and now I get some prices coming through. And again, I'm in draft mode. So here I would have to sort of start to decide, maybe I need to put in some start dates, end dates, when is this actually applicable to and from. So the other option is, well, that's great. I can then, copy from one price list to another price list. But what if I want to sort of use Excel? So there's two options with that. One option is there's a feature that's always been inside BC, which is the configuration packages. And to understand that one, we got our friend the page inspection. And then so if you're trying to find the particular table that you need to use, then it'll be the price list line. So that'll be for the configuration package. If you know about configuration package, that's one option. But now we have an option to edit in Excel as well. So edit in Excel means let's take this data, put it into an Excel worksheet, and inside there you're going to have a data connection back into BC. And for those who've done editing in Excel before, you'll know that there's a publish feature. So I'm going to click it and see hopefully it will work. Sometimes it doesn't work for me because I have multiple connections to all sorts of different Business Central environments. But let's just see if I can bring it across. Oh, so we do have some data. So what I mean by that is, if we decide here's our data here, and actually I want to tweak that and make that 170, and then I just publish back. So that's the key thing there, is publish back. And then if I come back to here and I hit on F5, and then we get an update. So that's another way to, use the power of Excel to update prices. And again, we're still in draft mode, so this is not affecting how prices are calculated. And again, just going back to your existing prices to this new pricing model, go back and do your tests effectively. And I haven't sort of gone through back to that full circle of going back to a sales quote and then making sure that my test quotes will actually still work, but I think you understand the concept of, you know, find something that you know how it works now, copy the company, enable the pricing feature, test again to make sure those prices come through. The other consideration, there's a feature to just from visually, when you go back to sales my sales quote here or sales order, what sometimes people forget about this option here. So I've got an option here I can get a price, and what that can do is give me some choices about what price I have available. So this particular customer and this item, I can see which prices are available. I don't know if anyone actually knows about that, but that's a feature that's there. And the other one I just wanted to quickly mention before I start to wind down is the sales and receivable setup. Is you'll have something here now to if you don't want to accidentally start editing prices, because prices are quite important to a business if you are using them, then you might want to sort of have a global setting to say, you know, we don't want to accidentally change our prices. You know, maybe there's only a certain period of the year that we go and change these prices. So you can actually go and say, no, we're not going to change any active prices. It doesn't stop you from changing prices when you're in a draft mode, so you can prepare yourself. So as a control mechanism, I'd maybe recommend, you know, switching that one off if you've got active prices. And then you can still edit the draft prices, of course. So that's just another takeaway there. Yeah, so that's if I go back to my PowerPoint. Yeah, I just made sure that in case my screens didn't work, I was going to make sure I was going to mention this. Also, the other thing that's is always a feature in Business Central. When we're talking about one ledger, sometimes there's another ledger that's the opposite to this, which is the purchase ledger. So in case someone's asked, does this affect the purchase prices? It does. So the new pricing experiences also affects purchases as well. So what we've seen today is exactly the same for your vendor prices as well. That will be a new framework. Yeah, so there's some links. I think Danusha's done this for me, putting some useful links into the if you want to sort of learn more about this. The other thing that, you know, for the people that have joined, if you do have any developments around prices, then yeah, there may be a requirement to change some of your development because the structure of the tables have changed. So if we've got some development that is using the existing pricing model, and now we've gone to a new pricing model, then obviously those tables don't exist anymore. So we might have to change some development if you've got something very specific around prices. So that's another sort of takeaway. Hence, that's why you know, please, you know, put this into a sandbox, enable it, and test it out.
Jason, we've had a couple of questions come in. So first of all, someone said they just missed the beginning. So could you just show customer templates with regard to a price list choice? Is that doable, or should we take that offline?
So yeah, so if you, well, I can just try and show you here if we go back to software.
Whilst you're just working out where to look, one of the other questions that came up was, should this be tested as part of the next wave? And the answer to that is no. We are suggesting it's tested and applied before the next wave. So once everyone has been waived for this one, wave 2 of this year, there'll be time at the beginning of next year to do the testing, to work in sandboxes. And we're suggesting that if you want to apply this, do this before April. So do it February, March time, so that you're ready, up and running, so that when you start testing in April for new wave functionality, this isn't being done at the same time, just to make your lives a bit easier. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know if I'm answering the question, but from a customer's point of view, we do have the concept of, the price lists are here. This is this particular customer has available to them, but there's nothing stopping you to create then a very specific customer to item relationship. That hasn't changed. So if you can maybe create another price list that's only for this particular customer, and then obviously maybe work with a date range in there as well. So I don't know if that's the answer to that one, but that hasn't really changed in terms of there is that relationship between a particular customer and an item. You just go and create it the same way in the sales prices. So if I just let's try and do one quickly. So this for this particular customer, let's call it Pacific. If I just go and pick here I would go and say it's a price. It's 100 and I can't remember what my base prices are, but 140, 140 for a Paris chair, and that is now specific for this particular customer. So we're still using the same header and lines. The header is now specific to one customer. The assigned to is that particular customer, and then you go through and add your prices here. And again, you can still use Excel. If you wanted to build out prices for a particular customer, like you've got high profile customers. But I still suggest, and depends on your business, but obviously you might want to use price groups if there's commonality between customers.
Cool, thank you. I think there was a supplementary question, so I'll just pass the details on to you.
Sure, yeah. So let me go back to PowerPoint. There's some links to.
Absolutely. So thank you everyone for the questions that have been passed on. Thank you, Jason, for doing that demo for everybody. The link will be available in due course as a webinar on demand. And if anyone has time and they'd be willing to fill in that QR code, it's a Microsoft form that we just look for feedback after events that we've held online, such as this one. And I just want to say thank you for everyone joining. Thank you, Jason, for doing that demo.
Thanks, Danisha. Thanks, everyone.